Welcome to Let's Talk to Animals. I'm your host, Shannon from Animal Love Languages, and this is my ever-present feathered sidekick, my 22-year-old soul bird, Pearl Cuts, and he never misses an episode. Have you ever wished you could talk to animals? You can. Animal communication is every human animal's birthright, and I'm on a mission to share this with our podcast listeners and our YouTube watchers and all those who treasure and adore the wildlife and the animals that we share our lives with. My very first experience talking to animals was with an iguana. I will never forget because I was totally expecting a cat or dog, and instead I started to get the sensation of this yellow, very smooth, hairless skin, and I was like, what the heck is up? And imagine my surprise and my delight, lifelong reptile lover here. And my first thought after finishing our conversation was, everyone can do this. And you can. Just going to go out on a limb here and assume that if you're listening or if you're watching today, that you have an interest in animal communication, that maybe you've even been wondering if it's something that you could add to your toolkit. Through this series, I've invited a group of amazing animal intuitives and animal communicators to shed light on how to get started. You know, what do you do first? What is it like? How will your life change? What can you do with these skills as you learn them? Today's guest is Joanne Yeoh. She's with Animal Communication Insights and has made time in her busy schedule with all of your classes and your programs and all of your different packages to talk to you today about what it was like for her when she got started, how she got started, and advice for you if you're interested in learning a little bit more about animal communication. So our first question today for you, Joanne, is when did you know that talking to animals is even possible?
Well, I never knew it was possible. It wasn't something or a concept that I had heard about. My background growing up as a child wasn't around animals or nature. In fact, quite the opposite. And, you know, my career in my 20s and my 30s and even up to my 40s was very much in the city. And then I, had an opportunity to have a dog of my own. And even then, I didn't know anything about animal communication. I kind of had what I would call a typical, non-animal communicator relationship with my dog, trying to be the best pet parent, taking him to training classes, but, having some issues with him, thinking that it's to do with him. And I just had to up my game with the training. And so we did have some struggle. So that was really perhaps that it started from there, where I was wondering what else, is going on here. Why do I not have a perfect dog, you see?
Great question.
Around the same time, I also became interested in oracle cards, and I had embarked on a certificated course with Denise Lin, oracle card course program called Soul Coaching. And one of the layouts of all the many layouts that we were practicing was one for you and your pet, your relationship with your pet. And I was like, wow, can you do a card reading for you and your pet? And that really intrigued me. And of course, with the questions that I was having about my relationship with my dog, so I started to do that with the cards and thinking, what the cards, following the guidance of the cards to get the messages. And within this program, I was part of a group, a community, where we would just share, our journey and our card readings. And then out of the blue, somebody had put a post in the group saying, I'm looking for someone to do a reading for my cat. Anybody here wants to do one? And I thought, wow, I've not even seen somebody ask for that. So I put my hand up because it didn't seem many people had said yes to it. And my path crossed with a person called Isabel. And turned out that when I was doing the card reading, I started to get information that wasn't connected with the cards. I was getting information about, some visuals, some emotions, and bits and snippets of information about the cats. behavior, life, likes and dislikes. And unbeknown to me, Isabel was actually a communicator herself. So she actually said to me, do you realize, she says, that what you're doing is animal communication? And that was my very first introduction to the term animal communication.
How amazing. I've heard it said and have definitely experienced it. Not only do our animals find us, but sometimes animals will find us in the most mysterious ways to help us realize that we have untapped potential or deeper expression within us. And it sure does sound like Isabel and her cat really had their eyes on you.
Yes,
How
because
neat.
it could have been, if it wasn't Isabel, it could have been somebody just wanting a reading. Because the story kind of goes on with Isabel. She, in the end, became my informal mentor because she had many more cats. And she said that the information that I was sharing with her about her cats, she said were really, insightful. And so she wanted to help me, really to nurture me. So that actually was, when you think about synchronicity and coincidence, she really was a huge part in what followed as a result.
It's an interesting thing to contemplate for anyone who's listening or watching today, where when we just give ourselves permission to follow our interests and our passions and just explore and not necessarily have to have an end game in mind or a concrete goal or, a 5-year plan or even a 5-month plan, especially in the world we're living in now. 5 months seems kind of extreme, to just be able to say, I want to take this card course, or I just want to sit down and, try to tune in with my dog, or maybe consider for a moment it's not the dog, that's
Yes.
causing the, I loved your comment about, I just wanted to be a perfect pet parent. Why don't I have a perfect dog? And it's like, well, the animals are so wise and they can see us in ways that often we can't see ourselves. And they're so unconditionally loving.
Yes.
I mean, talk about being willing to act out and potentially suffer the consequences just to try to teach us, to elevate us, to open us, to expand our hearts. That's pretty remarkable. So anyone that's listening or watching and you're thinking, have I ever had an experience like that? Have I ever just thought for maybe just a moment that when I look at my animal, my bird or my turtle or my dog or my cat or my horse or whoever it is, and I think that I know something about them and I can't pinpoint how or exactly why, could it be that you're tuning your channel into that frequency? Just something to kind of plant a little seed. So you are talking to animals now for 20 years.
No, sorry,
No,
not 20 years. Just
not 20 years?
No, not 20 years. In terms of 20 years within the field of having been introduced to energy work, but to actually connecting with animal communication and started my business would have been about 6 years ago.
6 years ago. So you've had six years now of very consciously, and I would argue probably many more years of unconsciously, maybe not quite so consciously, talking to animals. And so you are in a perfect position to answer the question of, what is it like for you? What is it like? What does it feel like? What is it the same as talking to a person? Is it way different? Does it change? Yeah, it's interesting.
I'd like to share.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I like to share the difference and the similarity with when I communicate with my own and when I communicate with animals of clients, because there is a slight, I suppose it's a different role that I play. So when I communicate with my own, and it's taken me some time to kind of work through, how to do that. It's very much for me to connect in with where they're at rather than what I want from them. So often if I approach them with my agenda, often if I'm very specific about questioning them about something that I want to fix, they really teach me by just saying to me, I need to be creative in my questions. I need to meet them where they're at. So often I can either get nothing from them. And I've learned now that often my own animals can be so honest with me that if I feel as if I'm getting nothing, they're really saying to me, change your question or change your energy. So with my own animals, I get that. And I find that with them, I can just dip in, dip out. I can have long conversations. I make it now a very daily practice. And each of them have their own different ways of communicating. So with clients' animals, it's much more about setting the intention with what my purpose is to enter into, their energy field, to enter into their space, to communicate with them. And often with animals that I don't know, what it's like is I always say to them, can you show me what it would be like if I was to meet you in person? And they do. So the minute I set that intention, I will get a visual of what it'd be like. Will they approach me? Will they sit next to me? Will they be shy? Will they be funny? And so the first few, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, I really get a sense of their personality. I get a sense of, how I feel when I'm with them. So I always like to spend that amount of time just getting to know them. And so the way it comes to me, my strong sense is emotion. I always, get a sense of where I can kind of describe how they're feeling in that moment. Visuals come as a result of the emotion. I can get physical sensations. Often I can get smell and taste as well if I'm asking them about their favorite food. I can get sounds if they want to. Sometimes I can hear, like crisp packet, kind of crunching, and I'm thinking, oh, what's that? So yeah, it just comes through almost, so not so much in words, but it turns into words, because the quicker I'm able to translate what they're saying to me, then I can, share that. So the experience of talking to animals is very much, I'm in receiver mode. So I liken to talking as in listening. So when I'm listening to them, it's the same as me talking to them. And they just send me mostly feelings, and they just like telling me about themselves.
What a wonderful, wonderful way to look at talking as listening. Oh, that just gives me pause. I mean, have you ever had one of those conversations where like you literally did nothing but listen and just say, and then the other person goes away and is like, they're so easy to talk to. We had such a fabulous conversation. I'm so excited to see them again. And you're like, I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And I
love listening. Yeah. I mean, my nature is a listener, so it's kind of natural for me. And then for the quieter animals, I still listen, but I may prompt with some questions. And I like being creative with my questions. I ask questions from the animal's perspective. I don't assume that they know exactly what I mean, because a lot of the things that we ask them is as a result of, a human environment. It's our perception, of things. So I will always kind of double check and say, when we talk about crossing the road and, busy cars, I'll just say to them, what does cars mean to you? And I'll visualize a car, but then what I might get is an emotion from them, or a sound, or a smell. And so I like to exchange information with them.
It's another great perspective. I mean, the problem of translation, and just remembering what a great a great way to expand and evolve our consciousness to just think about, when I say car, does the animal even understand? When it's like, of course, everybody knows what a car is, no, an animal might just see something loud and fast and stinky,
Yep.
and scary. What is a road? I mean, these are I love how creative you are with your questions. And it just, I mean, I feel like this is the same reason that many, many people love travel and tend to crave travel, especially when we can't do it. Like right now, during the last year and a half, when it's been so restricted and people kind of get, I read so much and hear so much about getting kind of stir crazy and thinking about, well, this is another way to travel, to open up and expand and have a new experience. And you don't have to leave your safe space, especially if you're worried, about what's going on and your health. I mean, in fact, that's another great question. Humans, we're accustomed to either we're face to face, which we haven't been able to do a lot of over the last year and a half, or we need a piece of technology. We need something to connect. Animal communication, it can be done in person.
Yes.
But the technology is for the benefit of the human.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I don't know if you want to share a little bit about what that's like to kind of wake up to this ability to have a conversation with another being without needing technology or having to be in person, face to face. That's kind of mind-blowing, actually.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I have to admit, even after 6 years of being full-time, working as an animal communicator, I still feel very pleasantly surprised. I still get a kick out of it. And I've moved from, in the early days, I was full of doubt. And now the doubt has changed more to, oh, this is so cool. Whereas before it was very much, oh gosh, can I do this? Can I do this? So now it's very much, well, do you know what? As long as it lasts, as long as the animals want me to do this, as long as, it can be used for the purpose of fun and joy and love and, helping to reduce any misunderstanding, then that's what I will want to keep doing. So in terms of technology, yes, I mean, the way I learned to do this is I do need the photograph of the animal, because I'm easily distracted. So if I don't have a picture,
imagine that.
Yeah.
Is there anyone listening or watching who can relate, right?
Yeah. So if I don't have a picture of the animal, then somebody described to me, said, okay, I've got a tabby cat, then I mean, I can imagine all sorts of different tabby cats, and I could be connected in with a different tabby cat, and then I'd be questioning that too much. So I always like to work with a photo, and I don't have to study it. I just look and then I connect with that. But yeah, I mean, now I'm not restricted by location. I mean, we're talking, I'm in the UK, you're in the US. I've met people from all over the world, people in Japan and Australia and France, and it's just opened up my world to think that I can communicate with animals without limitation. And it works with my own pets as well. If I'm not with them, and I just want to check in on them, and the same with, them with me. So that really is pretty mind-blowing. And what's really fascinating is the animals that I've been able to meet after I've communicated with them, at a distance. There's this feeling that we already know each other. And in fact, there are, there's a number of animals that I've regularly communicated with over the years. And I have to pinch myself because it's like, I have met them, but I know I haven't, but I have met them. And so it really does bring home that there is no limits when we cross dimensions, I suppose.
Exactly, the interspecies aspect of it. And there's a huge I would say, growing wave of loneliness that's happening as our world continues to adjust to the pandemic that just won't quit, and we start to try to reconfigure what we can expect in terms of remaining connected. And it's so easy to forget. And this has been something that I've actually struggled in the opposite direction, but it can be so easy to forget that we have friends all around us, you know, and the trees and the grass and our animal friends. And not everybody will agree with me, but the insects and the planet and the weather and there's always somebody to keep company with if we just start to open again, a little expand again, reframe. I remember in college, I'm still a late bloomer. I'm 50 this year, and I think I'm still sprouting. I'm not even sure I'm blooming yet, but I just remember when I was lonely in college, which was quite a bit, I would go see a flock of birds on the lawn, and I would just go sit with them. It's like, oh, those are my people. You know, I've had birds since I was 8, so these are my beings, so to speak. And I always felt like maybe they were kind of like, she's a strange, large bird, you know, she doesn't, but they always were just very accepting. I felt very accepted. You know, I want to touch on a point you made about that doubt, that early doubt, because it's easy to tune into a podcast or watch a video on YouTube, binge watch even. We'll be at that level soon. We'll have enough episodes if you want to binge watch. Let's talk to animals, you can, or binge listen. But it's another experience entirely to learn about it in a book or listen to somebody else talk about doing it and actually get yourself over that hurdle into, well, I too can do this. And that, you know, it's not, I mean, it's like, there's the doubt of that fear factor of like, oh, I'm going to be the only person on the planet that can't do this, right? I know I had that when I first started. I'm going to be the only person in the world that the animals will not talk to, you know, totally not, didn't happen. And then there's, as you're kind of learning the mechanics, you know, because we have to learn our language, we have to learn how to speak it, we have to learn how to use it, we have to learn how to listen with all of our senses, and then we refine our craft. And that helps us navigate when we're having tougher conversations, deeper conversations. So I know you have a number of programs and you also offer mentoring. So what advice would you give to somebody? Maybe they've never done it before, or maybe they've just had like 1 or 2 experiences and they're right. How do you get over that hump so you can create a consistent practice of these conversations and you just don't let that doubt just stop you cold?
Yeah. I've been so blessed to meet Isabel because she was the starting point. So I didn't, you know, kind of do it on my own or set up on a course or anything like that. And so the context was that it was informal. She was so supportive. And if I didn't get something that she could relate to, she could explain. She could say, it could be this, it could be that, you know, look at the bigger picture. She just gave me that foundation of not immediately thinking you're wrong, not immediately going to that place of, oh, this is rubbish, or I can't do it. And in many ways, I'm kind of honoring, you know, what she did for me by now really helping, you know, other learners and even professionals who, you know, we all carry this doubt, and a lot of the doubts are to do with actually the humans. It's nothing much to do with the animal. So one of the tips I do give, you know, my members in the group, if they are really seriously plagued by doubts, is I say to them, do communications that you're not going to get feedback for. Because if you're doing communications with the background thought that you're going to get feedback, therefore could be right or wrong, You're not focused on connecting in with your senses. You're not focused just on the animal, So I often say, just submit at least 5 or 6 communications where you don't get feedback, and just go with the flow, what is coming through, and just put everything down. No editing, don't leave it out. If you think this doesn't make sense, write that out. It's fine. Just write, I received something yellow and I think it could be a banana. Well, this seems silly. I want them to write all of that out. I want them to give me a commentary of what is going on with them. And then through that kind of experience or that process, I can check in and say, now this is your critical mind happening here. This is your unconscious limiting belief coming up here. This is how you can really understand that from an animal's perspective. They would describe it like that. So we start to really explore just your relationship with the animal. Then when you're ready, because only when you trust yourself, to me, that's when you should be ready to offer the communication for someone to give you feedback. So I think sometimes we might have skipped a step. So because after Isabel, I went on to do, some workshops. And of course, the first thing they do is everybody exchanges photo. And I sat next to this person in the group, and I was full of whatever, because Isabel has helped me. And I relayed all this information that I received at the time. And, turned out the person said, no, none of that. So I'm so glad that that wasn't my first experience.
Yeah.
But it still had an impact.
It's a huge awakening when we realize, I just am so struck by the fact that interspecies, this universal language of all species, is our birthright. And yet not a one of us we've never gone to any class for it. We've spent years and years and years. I've barely mastered one language. I've tried to learn 5 others and I've bombed at all 5 of them, and that was after careful study and practice. And so expecting ourselves to be able to learn how to speak, listen, and communicate in a new language, and then take in all of that data, that's what my teachers thus far have called it, data, and sift through to find the important bits and do that quickly and be able to respond. And that takes work, and we don't realize we're even doing it. And we just expect all of what we've learned with our primary language to translate so automatically and effortlessly. And because we're now communicating between an animal, their person, and ourselves. Now that's not always the case if we're talking to, let's say, a wild animal in our backyard, or we want to connect in with an animal that we've heard about on the news that's in the wild. Maybe it's not filtered through human, but in most cases, animal communication is going to be filtered through a third party in that communication, which is the human. And that human may not see things from their animal's perspective.
Yeah.
They have the freedom to disagree. Because they too, I loved what you said about, our own old limiting beliefs, or our, critical mind talking, because that animal's human is also going to be dealing with those things. But unlike us, they're probably not going to know it. Just that perspective of, well, I've been a perfect pet parent. I just love that. Why isn't my dog perfect? And coming to fix my dog, I'm coming to you, animal communicators, so you can fix my dog. It's like, maybe it's the dog, not the dog. That's exactly what you said. Maybe it's not the dog who needs fixing. It's so profound. And it's really, it's one of those things that's worth putting in the time. It's worth struggling. I just want anyone who's tried it and maybe doesn't feel confident right now, isn't sure that they too can do this, to understand that, this is learning, this is growing, this is stretching.
I think if you can find someone that can really have this ability to have a, the bigger perspective for you, somebody who's been, through it as well, and just to have that guidance, because just having an understanding of how does the information come through, how do we know it's from the animals and not our own thoughts, how do you get to a place where you trust yourself, how do you get to a place where, how do you become aware of, are you visual, do you get sounds, do you get smell, are you more physically, kind of somebody that really feels the sensations. I think it's knowing that it really comes through in those those senses, and then being able to kind of check out that when we translate it, to double check with the animal and say, do you agree with my translation? Because then we can get a sense of them going yes or no. So always referring back to them is really my, kind of advice for the times when I did have confidence with Isabel, and then went through a whole period of about a year and a half when I decided to offer it as a service. And of course that brought in different challenges. And then really learning about how to also help the pet parent, to understand the information that's comes through, help them to shift their perspective. So I started to do a lot of my work using video calls, because it was easier to have the conversation live. It was easier for me to bring the two parties together. And if the pet parent turns around and says, no, I don't agree, I just want my dog to, behave itself, I'll actually say to the dog, did you just hear what your mum said? She just wants you to behave. And then he'll give her the answer. So I'm not then trying to fix, I'm not trying to resolve. I'm just saying, hey, can you hear what she's saying? And then he might say, I'm doing my best to behave, but I don't actually know what the criteria is for behaving. So that I'll say to the person, can you break down what behave means? Because your dog doesn't actually know what behave means. So when you say to him, can you just behave? He's thinking, what does that mean? So then we have this amazing conversation where the human then breaks down what behave means. I send that to the dog in visual, sound, smell, taste. We have different scenarios. And then the dog goes, oh, that's behave. Well, I can do that, but I don't know if I can do that. And then you have this kind of agreement. We have this, negotiation, and it helps the pet parent to go, I didn't realize he didn't understand. And I'll be saying, well, can you see now why we assume so much about our animals? And then that shifts their relationship. So they don't think, oh, he's only just doing that because he's been difficult. Because remember, it was me that said, why is my dog perfect? So I had to go through all of that. I had to really understand what perfect meant, so that's why I can help others to really get to a place where there's no assumptions made, but open discussion.
Absolutely. And it's so critical, because it feels like, simultaneously, especially over the last year and a half, which of course now, is starting to kind of feel like our new reality, there both have been a lot more pets that have been relinquished, and there have been a lot more pets that have been adopted or purchased. And so the role of the animal communicator as the translator, as the mediator, as at least the moderator, can be so critical in keeping pets with their people and helping people understand what's going on, so we can work together, so we can remain a family, and there sometimes something that feels like it's completely broken beyond repair is really very fixable if we just approach it from a different perspective. Maybe try something new that you've never tried before. And, maybe some of you, because we know how YouTube in particular curates things, maybe, you stumbled across Let's Talk to Animals when you were really looking about, how to fix your carburetor or clean out the attic, and you have no idea why you're watching this. But maybe your animal has been doing that crazy thing that drives you insane, and maybe that this is a little nudge from them, because a lot of times animals will drop the idea into their people's minds. And suddenly we're starting to think about, I wonder if I did work with an animal communicator, what would I learn? What would happen? That's a great question. And I've got to give myself props for this. It leads so smoothly into my final question for you, which is I really want to hear more. I've alluded to it. Your website is hold on, I want to make sure I get it right, animalcommunicationinsights.com. And you have services, you have packages, you have programs, you have mentoring, you have a community. Tell us more about what you do and how you, all the different ways you can help pets and people communicate.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity to share that.
Of course.
I have 3 areas of passion. One area is I really enjoy teaching pet parents to communicate with their pets. I want to make it so that we stop saying it's harder to communicate with our own. And so I do have 2 signature programs catered specifically just for pet parents. There's a 4-week program, which is, an introduction. And then there is the 6 month that you move into, so that the ultimate goal is that everybody becomes very familiar with being able to communicate with their own pets anytime, anywhere, so that when they learn at a time where they can have daily conversations, it makes the more difficult conversations or the more challenging conversations where they can then trust the information. So if you know how to receive information from your own pets about the kind of food they want to eat, or the type of walks they want, or the type of bed they want, then you know that as you trust the information and how it's coming through to you and how you can get through to them, then when it comes to conversations such as health, when it comes to making decisions about surgeries, when it comes to moving home, when it comes to introducing another member of the family, into their family, when it comes to end of life, I have a real connection with supporting pets with decisions with end of life. So that's always, my goal is to really allow pet parents to get to a place where they can trust what their pet is saying to them when it's end of life, so that they no longer have guilt. So that's kind of a mission for me.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. So really that's my gorgeous aim for creating those programs to specifically work with pet parents. Then I have a community that is a mixture of learners and professionals. And the main aim of that community is to boost confidence. So it's called the Confidence Booster Group.
Wow. And we love that. I need that too. We all do.
But everything we do in that group is about confidence boosting, fantastic, specifically for animal communication. So we have some, great events that I hold, or I get guest speakers in, so it ranges from a guest speaker that we're going to be having next week, where she does energetic home clearing, because we believe that if you have clutter in the house, it's going to clutter your energy. And then we've had guest speakers in the past where, they will help you through using emotional freedom technique to release limiting beliefs. And also I have a monthly Ask Me Anything. So my members can literally ask me anything, any questions. I don't hide anything. I will share stories of client sessions where I've been, I don't think I did that well, or somebody's asked for a refund, or I will share, aha moments. I will share about, wow, I didn't realize that, you know, this animal could tell me this, try this question really worked. So I share everything that anybody wants to know. So that's the confidence booster group. And then I have a more intensive 3-month one-to-one mentoring program for professionals who want to create a successful business in animal communication. Because again, you know, like myself, I would love to do this professionally. I've dedicated my life work to it, only to then have issues around charging. What do I price? How do I ask for money? How do I find clients? How do I sustain myself? How do I take care of my dogs and my cat? And so I have had the privilege of supporting quite a number of professional communicators where they're now, you know, able to feel confident with creating a strategy for business and know that their offers or their prices are what they feel at ease. Because I really also want to collectively communicators to demonstrate that animal communication is a credible service, is credible to, you know, as a paid service, and it's really important. So yeah, so those are the 3 things that I spend my time doing.
Well, it's a lot, right? You've got a very full plate, and you know, there's a lot of brave in that, you know, especially at a time on our planet where so many of us are trying to find our voice and our place. And so many of us are starting to wake up and realize I'm not really happy doing the work that I've been doing. It doesn't feel fulfilling. I don't feel like I can make a difference. And I want to jump out of bed in the morning and get excited because I've had all these downloads and all these new ideas, and I'm doing something I love, whether that's animal communication or it's something completely different. It doesn't matter what it is, but there are, you know, it's so tempting in the westernized business model to just kind of look at, you know, risk management or take a look at supply and demand. But just here, I mean, you're in the UK, I'm in the United States. What do we have? Like 30 million dogs alone, I believe, in the households right now. I mean, we have so many animals in this country. And I just, you know, when I was training my class, I think we had 16, you know, and I mean, when you look at it's like there will always be a need for more professional animal communicators.
Yeah.
We are not, you know, demand is just a matter of having enough supply so that there are people that even, you know, are reached with the message that animal communication is a thing. My mother is my biggest supporter. You know, I talked to one animal and she's like running around the neighborhood telling everybody that I talk to pets. Wow. You know, I mean, she tells everyone that I channel animals. I mean, it was just, it's actually really cool. But she had never heard of animal communication until she, you know, I came home and told her I was going to be an animal intuitive. And I talked to her dog. And that was, you know, and it's like, how many people, it's so easy. And this, I just want to, again, drop this into your mind's eye for anyone that's listening or watching. It's so easy to assume that the moment you get involved with an animal community, a community of fellow students, a community of professional communicators, you're suddenly surrounded by people that are studying this, people that are passionate about this. And it's so easy to fall into the trap of assuming that everybody knows about this stuff. Most people don't know about this stuff. If you're thinking about it, the animals are calling you. It doesn't mean you have to hang out a shingle and charge if you don't want to. I have some of my fellow students and those I've met along the way, they're just very passionate about helping a very sensitive rescued animal to ease up and fit in and learn how to not be so reactive. Some people, they just are so passionate about volunteering at charities, you know, and helping rescue associations. You don't have to have one of our westernized reasons for doing this, you know, our goal-oriented reasons, if you will. I hesitate to even see westernized. It's probably planetized at this point, but just, it's worth it's worth it. And I'll kind of leave you with this. When I communicated with an animal for the first time, I started to feel parts of myself wake up that I never knew were there. And I'm 50, guys. Like, there's a lot more to you. And it can be really fun to explore. Joanne is available. I am not a teacher. I am a huge advocate, as well as a communicator and an intuitive and a Reiki master, but I'm not a teacher, at least not yet, but Joanne is. If you want to learn animal communication, go to animalcommunicationinsights.com and check out the wonderful programs, services, and the community, especially the community. I'm really going to emphasize that, because animal communicators, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, we're cool people. We're fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
Having a community is a cool thing. It's something really awesome to add to your life.
Definitely.
So, Joanne, thank you so much again for taking the time, for donating the time to be with us today. I will make sure that your website information is posted in the show notes for the podcast and the YouTube series. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you and learning more about what you're doing. And maybe we'll have you back. Who knows?
Who knows? But thank you
back.
so much for this opportunity. Yeah, it's been great fun. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again. And to everyone watching and listening, thank you. If you love what we're doing here, give us a 5-star rating wherever you can find a place to do that. Like and subscribe, do all those wonderful things. And we look forward to being back with you again very soon. Okay, you can find me, Shannon, at animallovelanguages.com. More importantly, you can also find him there. Okay, bye for now.